It's working.
Let's simonize our watches.
Okay. Welcome to the Hillsborough Township Planning Board public meeting of July 9th, 2015. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting has been duly advertised according to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, the Sunshine Law. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner?
Here.
Mr. Conrad?
Here.
Mr. Merdinger?
Here.
Vice Chair Cohen?
Yes, here.
Chairman Dr. Sarici?
Here. Next item, minutes. First, the minutes of the May 14th meeting.
Mr. Chairman, the eligible members are Mr. Cohen, Mr. Conard, Mr. Wagner, and yourself.
Okay.
Move the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay. Any comments? Roll call.
Yep.
Who were the eligible ones?
Everybody but Mr. Merdinger.
Everybody but Mr.
Yeah,
Merdinger.
just skip me.
Mr.
And
Wagner?
actually, Mr. Peason, who is now here. Is
Yes,
eligible.
yes, let the record show that Mr. Peason has arrived. We were discussing, Bob, the minutes of the May 14th meeting, which was the daycare.
Mr. Conrad?
Yes.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cohen?
Yes.
Chairman Dr. Sarici?
Yes.
Also, Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Okay. Next up are the minutes for the June 4th meeting.
Mr. Merdinger, Mr. Cohen, the chairman, Mr. Wagner, and Mr. Peason.
I'll move those minutes. I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Merdinger?
Yes.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Chairman Dr. Sarici?
Yes. Next up is a disposition of resolutions. This is the resolution for Amwell Commons, file 15 PB09 MSRV/SR.
The eligible members are the chair, Mr. Wagner, and Mr. Peason.
I move for 15 PB09 MSRVSR.
I'll second.
Okay. Any comments? Roll call.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Chairman Dr. Sarici?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there any business from the floor for items not on the agenda? Pearson Properties and Richmond Properties are on the agenda. Okay, seeing none, we can move to the public hearings. Glengarry has been adjourned until further notice, which is right now until September 30th. So next up is Pearson Properties, 15 PB05 MSRV. Yes?
We do have one other item.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yes, and this is in regard to Pearson Properties too. So, yes, I am sorry. You're right. I skipped right over that. You're absolutely right. Go ahead, Marcia. Why don't you explain what we got?
Well, the board, Pearson Properties, they have been requested to provide, their noise consultant has...
I can't hear.
Oh, sorry. All right, I will speak louder. Is that better? Oh, no, that's, okay. The noise consultant began his testimony at the last hearing, After that hearing, we requested that there be a noise report done, which was submitted, and now we suggest to the board that there be a noise, that report be reviewed by a appropriate noise consultant. The board has in their package the proposals from two noise consultants, the Noise Consultancy LLC and Russell Acoustics LLC. Both are highly qualified noise consultants. We've reviewed it, we've submitted it to the applicant for their review. They would respectfully request that the board select Russell Acoustics as the noise consultant.
Marcia, in terms of costs, in regard to the two, what was the comparison of costs?
Okay, well, first of all, the cost would come out of escrow. The noise consultancy was a not-to-exceed cost of $5,000. The Russell Acoustics LLC was a not-to-exceed cost of $4,000.
Okay, so it was by the hour, but two different not-to-exceed levels.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So the board then can choose one of them.
Yes.
Do you have a particular recommendation, or?
I think I've reviewed the resumes of both firms, and they're both highly qualified. Russell Acoustics, that the person doing the study is Norman Dottie, and he is a professional engineer, which is important. The Noise Acoustic Consultancy, they are highly qualified, many, many years of experience, but are not represented by a professional engineer. So that's something to weigh when you look at the proposals.
The environmental sciences guys.
Yes,
Right.
and they were highly recommended by the health officer, Dr. Belknap.
Dr. Belknap, the township's
Yes,
health official. Yeah.
He's
Mr.
worked with
Dottie
them.
is graduated from two very good engineering schools in New Jersey.
Okay. No, wait, we're going to get to
Mr.
that. I was going to ask you next. Okay, since you're the professional engineer on the board, and I was already guessing what you were going to say, in fact. But, okay. Thank you, Marcia.
You're welcome.
Bill, did you have any, no?
Sir. I'll let Mr. Merger speak for us.
Okay. All right. Mike, go ahead. You're the professional engineer on the board.
Mr. Dottie's experience and his degrees would fold right into this. He'd do a good job.
Did any of the other board members have any thoughts or preferences? No?
Stevenson.
Okay.
Engineer, I think.
Well, Mike, if you wanted to make a motion then?
I'll make the motion that we have a contract with Russell Acoustics LLC.
I'll second that.
Okay. Roll call.
Mr. Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Conrad,
Yes.
Mr. Merdinger,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cohen,
Yes.
Chairman Dr. Sweet.
Yes, and you can ask Mr. Peason, too.
I'm right behind
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
He's invisible.
Mr. Peason.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
We
So-
will draft the contract, Mr. Chairman. We will get the process moving.
Okay, thank you. So the township will hire through the escrow fund, or the board will hire through the escrow fund a consultant to consult, to do a consultation for itself on this matter. Next up then, as I was starting to say, although same application, Pearson Properties, so counsel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We've been here before, as you know, on June 11th. Board.
Yeah, you got to speak up.
We were here before on June 11th, as you know. And just a short background of this application. It's for a minor site plan and pre-existing non-conforming bulk variances. Basically a conversion of an existing concrete plant to an asphalt plant, a elimination of a non-conforming height from 72 feet to 60 feet, a reduction of impervious coverage, and taking a non-conforming residential structure and turning it into a conforming support office.
One second. Just let the record reflect that Committeeman Delcor has arrived.
Thank you. The applicant also offered, if the board so desires, to remove instead of making an adaptive reuse of the existing residential building as an office, support office, to remove it entirely and to remove the minor pre-existing nonconformity on the rear setback as an alternative. So as Ms. Schiffman stated, after the last hearing, we received a request for our noise consultant, Jack Zabura, to prepare a formal noise study and submit it to the board. We did so. We submitted it more than 10 days ahead of this meeting. That noise study was dated June 25th, 2015, and was submitted to the board as part of the application to be made part of the record. I'll go over that study with Mr. Zabura. I also have Gary Dean, professional engineer specializing in traffic from Dolan and Dean. He will provide testimony on traffic issues. And I also have Slavik Mokienko, who is operations manager at Pearson, and Kurt Mitchell, director of facilities, to discuss any questions that the board might have regarding those areas. And I would also note that in the last hearing, the board received extensive testimony from Mike Ford, our engineer, our civil engineer, who is also here if there are any questions on engineering, from Catherine Sutton-Choate, our environmental consultant, from Kurt Mitchell, and also beginning of testimony from Mr. Zabura. So with that, I believe Mr. Zabura was sworn in at the last meeting. Eric, that's fine. So, Jack, you could please come up.
Remind you, you're still under oath.
Yes. And if you could just, first I'd just like to say the members of the board have a copy of his June 25th noise study. All right. If you could just go over again for the board your background. You've already been qualified, but...
Sure. I'm Jack Zabura, ZYBURA. I'm an acoustical engineer, senior engineer at Lewis Goodfriend & Associates in Whippany, New Jersey. I have a bachelor's of engineering in acoustical engineering, and my PE is also in acoustical engineering, and I'm licensed in New Jersey.
1 second. Just let the record reflect that Deputy Mayor Burchett has arrived. Go ahead. You may continue.
Right. And Mr. Zabura, you submitted a report on dated June 25th, 2015, correct?
Yes.
Could you go over that report for the board?
Certainly. So what we did is we took the manufacturer's sound data from Aztec for each piece of equipment on the site. We put it into an acoustical model, and we generate the expected sound levels at the various property lines. And the most important one is the one across the street, which is the only residence that's directly adjacent to the site. There are other residences that are hundreds of feet away to the south and west. We also evaluated there, and then there's also the commercial property to the east of us. Based on the results of the acoustical model, we expect to be below the daytime limits of the noise regulation with the equipment as it comes from the manufacturer, with the manufacturer silencing incorporated. I understand that there's, on the rare occasion, we may operate during nighttime hours to meet the needs of various clients. In order to meet the nighttime noise regulation, we would need to implement additional noise control, such as barriers or additional silencing, in order to reduce the levels to below the nighttime code, which the applicant is willing to do.
All right. And could you just describe what the regulations are. Well, if you could describe what the regulations are and what your projections are.
Yes. So we're looking at the NJDEP noise regulation. It's a statewide code. For commercial properties, it's 65 decibels 24/7. For residential properties, it's 65 decibels during the day and 50 decibels during the nighttime hours. And daytime and nighttime are split up between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. is daytime, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. is nighttime. Along with those overall levels, there are individual octave band limits as well. Those are shown on the charts at the end of our letter for both the commercial and residential properties. And with the additional noise control, we expect to meet 49 dBA at that nearest resident and much lower levels at the residences that are further away to the south and west. And at the east, we expect to meet around 55 decibels, which again is commercial and is below the commercial code.
At the peak?
Yeah, these are for maximum operations.
What's the nighttime peak?
The nighttime limit is 50.
No.
50. We're expecting 49 at that residence.
At the evening, at night, between 10 and 7?
Yes. Well, we're expecting 49 dBA, which would meet both codes. So that's whenever it runs, it's the same amount of sound. What we're saying is we're projecting to meet 49 dBA as the plant operation, which would meet the nighttime.
But generally, the intent was that the operations would not be occurring at night, correct?
Correct, but in the rare occurrence that it does, I mean, I understand it might happen once or twice a year, depending on the needs of the clients when they're doing construction on the roads and what have you.
And if you could just give a little background on how you collected the ambient noise and what it is there
so
currently.
At the beginning of the survey, we went out with some sound level meters and took measurements along all four boundaries of the property, and they ranged between levels in the mid-40s up to the low 60s and even up to 68 at that north residence, particularly due to traffic noise was the major contributor there. Nighttime levels were around 50 to 57 dBA, depending on where you stood. So we're projecting levels from the plant that would be at or below what's being currently experienced around the site.
And the ambient noise levels there already exceed the, not from the plant, already exceed the regulations?
At the north residential property line, it does, yeah.
Okay. And is there any way you could illustrate or give an example for the board as to what some of these numbers reflect?
Yeah, so I took a quick reading when I walked in here today. The courtroom, when everyone's not talking and you're just listening to the HVAC, that's about 50 dBA.
Now, these are all projected measurements that you're talking about.
Correct. They're based off of the manufacturer's data.
Are they projected with the sound barriers that you're talking about, with your localized barriers,
Yes.
enclosures, and your stack muffler, silencer?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so you have to have all those working in order to comply. What's your in-plant noise level? I know the NJDEP regulations are for a residence, and luckily there's only one across the street. But I drive by the plant all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I will hear it with my windows down because I don't turn on the air conditioning.
Well, the residence is essentially across the street.
I know, I'm on the other side of the street when I drive.
10 feet on the other side of the street?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they'll
20
still be...
feet. The road is a
they'll be
little
around-
wider than 10.
They'll still be around 51, 52 decibels. There's not that much of a difference with that short difference in...
But this is taken into account that you got all the barriers
Correct.
installed and in working condition.
Yes.
And the muffler.
Yes. That's what we need to do. The bottom line is we need to meet the state regulation, and that's what we have to do to meet it.
The we isn't you. The we is
But we is the applicant.
Yeah, the applicant. And you ever been in a tar plant?
Yeah.
Okay. The barriers don't always, how do you say, stand up to forklifts and everything else.
Well, it could be barriers, it could be jacketing, it could be partial enclosures. There's a variety of ways to go about it.
But if you didn't have the barriers, you'd be over the limit in the plant. What is it, 80 decibels?
Well, the limit inside the plant, I guess, would be 85 if you're looking
Yeah,
at OSHA.
85 is the standard.
Yeah, and that's only a limit where you don't have to wear hearing protection. If there were levels over that in the plant, they could just wear hearing protection. And that would be
Isn't it
fine.
common to have over 85 in these situations, especially if you have
Yeah,
a
if you're,
forklift,
if
big
you're standing
trucks?
right next to the burner, or if you're standing right next to a fan
No, just
motor,
with the
it could be-
trucks.
Yeah, it could be over there on the plant, but we have distance between where the operations are.
I understand that. I'm
and
not
the-
talking about
and
the
property
distance.
line.
I'm talking about in the plant now.
Yeah.
You know, because you have truckers that pull in the trucks. I just didn't want you to paint a picture that said this is magnificent and it's the greatest thing in the world for noise. Because all equipment makes noise.
Correct, but in terms of the DEP code, we're going to be, it's going to be below the code at the property line, which is where we're enforced. I understand OSHA is a whole separate
That's
issue.
what I was just going to say to you is OSHA. I'm not talking about DEP, I'm talking about OSHA. Because if you don't have a residence, you know, if a tree falls in the woods, do you hear it? You know? So, okay, you definitely have to have all the barriers and everything else in order to comply.
Comply with DEP, yes.
Yes.
And you're aware that the applicant has offered, have a condition to do a formal noise assessment pursuant to NJAC 7:29 to show compliance, right?
Yes, once
Can
the
you
plant
speak
is
a little bit
operational.
louder, sir? We're having problems hearing you.
We have you have a very low,
Low
volume,
decibels.
Got a noise problem.
low volume, low hertz voice,
Low
which is
decibels,
just
yeah.
not carrying here.
All right.
He's trying to keep below the 50 here.
Yeah,
exactly.
it's quieter than the
49.
HVAC, that's the
Yeah.
problem.
So I said, you're aware that the applicant has offered, agreed as a condition to do a formal noise assessment to show compliance, correct?
Correct.
And
Could
that
that noise study also include noise in the plant and noise at the edge of the property?
It could, yes, if the board so wishes.
I guess what standards would those be measured at? Because the next question I was going to ask was the NJAC 729 noise assessment for compliance with off-site noise. What does that consist of?
There's a protocol in the DEP code of how to measure, how long to power up your sound level meter, calibrate it, how often to take measurements, how long to take measurements, reporting formats. But there's a whole procedure in terms of measurement. Basically, we'd be walking the site and the property lines and taking readings during a plant operation.
My question would be, what standards would it be measured against for inside, if we did a noise assessment inside the plant?
You know the standards.
I mean, the only thing inside the plant would be OSHA, but even
Yes.
if you're over 85, that doesn't mean you're in violation of OSHA. That just means your employees have to wear hearing protection.
Hearing protection. But that's good to know, so
Yes.
that, the truckers would have to wear it too,
Yep.
that are coming in, and visitors. So that's why I wanted to get the 85 decibels in the plant too.
But does that, so when you do that compliance testing, does that extend to the property line of the nearest residence, or only the property line of the plant?
It's the receiver's property line. So in the case of the north residence, it would be across the street.
You mentioned that here that the expected decibel is 49 at the boundary of the north residence. That's from the plant.
Correct, from plant
Now,
operations.
When there's also traffic, how is that factored in? Because there's noise from traffic plus noise from the plant at the same time being experienced at...
Well, they would add together, but the plant, the applicant is only responsible for their own noise. That's the way the code reads. It's the noise emanating from the commercial
plant.
site or the industrial site.
Gotcha, okay.
But what about your trucks that are idling in your plant?
It depends where they're idling. I mean, if we had
Yeah.
to, we might be looking at berms or barriers or something. When they're on the public road, they're exempt. But once they get onto the site,
Yep.
the good thing about this site is once they do turn onto the site, they're going straight back and as far away from that residence as possible, as quickly as possible.
Mike, you have
Is there any further questions from the board for?
any other questions? No? Well, we are going to have our own report on this generated as well, so we'll be able to review that when that comes in. No, we have no further questions. Has the public been able to ask questions of this witness yet? No, because I wasn't. All right, so do we have to open to public?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, questions from the public? Yeah.
Why don't we let the
Yeah, no, the
Well, let
objector
the
attorney.
public go
No,
first.
the.
attorney's got to go first?
Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I introduced myself the last time I was here. My name is Ron Gazarovski. I'm an attorney with offices in Red Bank, New Jersey, and I do have some questions of Mr. Zabora, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Zabora, in your report, you referred to acoustical measurements. Is there a difference between acoustical measurements and noise measurements?
No, that's just different vernaculars.
But in reality, what we're concerned about here is measuring the sound of noise as it emanates from this site. Is that not correct?
Well, sound is noise.
But
Noise
with
is
regard
sound.
to the DEP regulations and the noise ordinances, they refer to noise, measurement of noise, do they not?
They do.
Okay. Now, with regard to the site, I think you said that initially individuals went out to the site and utilized a noise meter to determine what the ambient noise was at the various parameters of the site. Is that correct?
Yes, at the property lines.
Did you do that?
I did not do that.
Who did it?
Our other engineers in our office. I was on site at a later date, though.
Okay. Now, with regard to those other engineers, and you were on the site at the same time?
Yes.
Okay. Now, are you certified to do noise readings as provided by the state of New Jersey with courses being conducted or given by Rutgers University?
I have not taken courses at Rutgers University. I do have a PE in acoustical
I
engineering.
understand you have PE and whatnot, but you are not in fact qualified then to read a noise meter and give testimony with regard to it, are you?
I am. The Rutgers course is one path by which you can be certified, not the only path.
Do you have a certification to be a noise consultant, or do you have a certification to give testimony before, let's say, an administrative body of a municipality if a noise ordinance is violated and a summons is issued?
I have a professional engineering license and a engineering
But you don't
degree.
have a certificate from the state of New Jersey saying you are qualified to read a noise meter and give testimony concerning same, do you?
I don't believe such a certificate exists.
But if it does exist, you don't have it.
I do not.
Okay. Now, do you know whether or not the people who went out there were so qualified?
They also have engineering degrees, same as I.
I'm not concerned about their engineering degrees. I take that as a given. Do they have certifications to read and give testimony with regard to the measuring of noise by utilization of a noise meter?
They do not have the hypothetical New Jersey noise reading certificate.
Okay. So, with regard to their noise readings, they are really not admissible, are they?
They are indeed inadmissible.
Now, having said that, do you have the written documentation, since those individuals are not here, as to the readings which they actually took?
We have calibrated meters which log the data, and we can provide all of the data from those meters if required.
But you haven't provided it, have you?
Generally, that's not provided with a letter from our office. You get a summary with the
I know
levels.
you have a letter, I know you have a summary, but right now what you're telling us is basically hearsay based upon what someone else from your office who isn't qualified said.
I think we can let the board's acoustical engineer decide the validity of our measurements.
I would note my first objection to this initial testimony being given by Mr. Zabora as to these ambient noises because it's purely hearsay. Having said that, I'll note my objection, and obviously this board is also calling for a noise consultant to provide a report as well. Let's go a little further. My understanding is that your client in this particular matter, you were retained to give testimony in support of an asphalt plant by Pearson Properties or Pearson's Asphalt Company or the like, were you not?
We were retained by R.E. Pearson, correct?
Okay. Now, they operate an asphalt plant in another part of New Jersey, do they not?
They do.
Now, if you wanted to take noise readings, you could have gone to those plans and taken those noise readings at that plans and actually taken a reading with regard to the conveyor belt, the silos, the mixing and/or the like. Could you not have?
Well, that is the exact data we got from the proposed equipment, which were based on measured levels.
Yeah.
The other Pearson plants are not the same as this plant. They are much larger and they have different operations.
Okay, so you made a decision not to go to the other Pearson plant and take measurements because you believe they would be higher than the information provided to you by Aztec.
I believe they would not be realistic to this application.
Okay. Now, with regard to these materials which are given to you by Aztec, where are those materials right now?
They're in various asphalt plants that were made by Aztec.
Okay. Now, if they provided materials to you, why did you not include them as a part of an appendix of your report?
We can certainly do that.
But you didn't do it, did you?
We did not. Again, that's not standard protocol. It goes into the acoustical model when we present our results.
Let me ask you a question. I mean, is there a book someplace which says what standard protocol is? My understanding is of an expert report that whatever you're opining as to, you're opining as to facts. So I want to know where the facts are that you are opining with regard to this letter which you have provided to the board. We know that you haven't given them the calibrations from the noise meters. We know that you haven't called the individual actually took the readings, and you haven't provided to them the materials that were given to you by Aztec, have you?
We have not, but all three can be provided if requested.
You provide copies to me also, please?
If requested.
Okay, fine. I'm requesting them. Now, what exactly did Aztec give to you?
They gave me a breakdown of about 20 to 25 different pieces of equipment and the associated noise levels with each piece of equipment.
Okay. Now, did you personally go out and examine those pieces of equipment?
No.
Now, my understanding is that with regard to certain pieces of equipment, such as, for example, an air conditioning system or a heating system, that the manufacturer, in fact, stamps or has a tag on that piece of equipment saying what the DBAs will be. Is that not correct?
I wish they did. That would make my life easier when collecting data.
Well, my question of you is, are you saying that you've never seen an air conditioning unit that's manufactured that has those DBAs stamped onto it with a metal tag attached to the equipment?
No.
You've never seen that?
No.
Did you ever look for it?
Yes.
Okay. Now, with regard to the equipment that Aztec has, let's not talk about the silencing systems. Can we agree that if, in fact, none of the silencing devices were placed upon the equipment, the noises coming from them would be greater than that which would be permitted under the noise ordinance?
That I don't know because they only provided me the silenced data.
Well, do you know how they collected the silenced data?
They went around to plants that had the data installed with the equipment installed with silencers and measured the sound levels.
Yeah, now, once again, Mr. Burstein, I mean, this is just really pure hearsay. Now we're talking about a manufacturing company down south who says that we went to a series of different plants with silencers on them, and this is what we found to be so, with none of the historic data to substantiate that.
Mr. Chairman, the standard for potentially, and I'm not suggesting that this is hearsay testimony, but for considering hearsay testimony is that it will be given such weight as the facts ostensibly support. So it will ultimately be up to the applicant to provide the necessary backup factual information plus the board's own experts' reports and related items. I think the testimony can be heard, taken into account the issue of what's to come and what other objections either the objector and or the applicant, depending upon the board's expert, have relative to this information.
As I understand it, Mr. Bernstein, what happens here with this sort of thing is that it's like with a deposition. You know, an attorney can make objections, say things like that. It doesn't actually stop anybody from saying anything, but it all goes into the record. So if it ever arrives at court, it's dealt with at that point.
If
Correct?
it gets to that point.
Right. Right. Okay.
I will also point out to the board that the applicant will be required, if the application is approved, to meet whatever applicable state, federal, and local laws exist relative to noise outside the plant and inside the plant.
Well, right. The law's the law before, during, and after the approval process. Right. Gotcha. Okay, I mean, you may.
I thank you, and I appreciate Mr. Bernstein's comments. I appreciate them. Now, how did Aztec get this information to you? Did they have a report that was prepared and mailed to you, all of this data reflecting the number of sites they visited, the number of asphalt plans they took readings at? Did they provide you with the data that was collected at all of these different plants they went to?
They provided me with the sound power data for each piece of equipment.
I'm not asking you about each piece of equipment. I'm asking you whether they provided you with the reports from these various locations they went to.
I don't know if such reports exist. They may have just been a measurement and then the noting of the data in a spreadsheet.
Well, how did Aztec come up with this information then? What was the methodology they utilized? Did they do an averaging? Did they do exact readings? Did they use noise meters? Or what did they do?
I'm not sure what they did. I was not on Aztec's staff at the time.
Okay, fine. Now, let's go a little bit further, because I was looking for this in your report. Would it be fair to say that the data that you've put forward is really speculative, meaning that hopefully if all of these various devices are functioning, you're saying that based upon what Aztec told you, they would be below the minimum permissible under the state DEP regulations?
We're showing that it is possible to meet the code with the implementation of the noise control measures.
It's possible, it's not a certainty.
Well, that's why we do compliance testing.
Okay, now, compliance testing, though, only takes place after the fact. If in fact this board were to approve this, if in fact you were to construct a plant, if in fact you were to install all these devices, that would be a compliance test, right?
Yes, you do compliance tests after operation has begun.
Now, having said that, and since these various plants exist somewhere on the East Coast, you could just as easily have visited some of those sites and performed these tests, could you not have?
Well, that work was already done by Aztec.
But you don't, well, again, once again, if it was, show me those reports. Will you provide them to me?
We can provide the data.
Okay, fine. Now, one thing I noticed in your report is that you provide absolutely no data with regard to noises emanating from the truck traffic coming onto the site. Were there any noise tests done with regard to measuring the noise emanating from these trucks as they sit idling in the ramp, as they accelerate, as they drop their loads, as they back up, as the various forklifts operate on the plant grounds? There's no data whatever with regard to that, is there?
It's not in the report. We did evaluate that, and we expect to meet the daytime code.
No. Is it in your report?
It is not in the report.
Okay, now, my understanding is that when you're preparing a report without using actual noise readings from a noise meter, there are models which are manufactured over in Europe, I think in Germany, which are computer models wherein you put in certain information and based upon the data that you put into the model, and you put in the ambient noise and you put in the topography and all of those things, they can come up with a projection as to what they believe the noise emanating will be. Did you do that?
Those models are based on acoustical calculations, and we did use an acoustical model.
What model did you use?
Sound plan.
Pardon me?
Sound plan.
And where is that manufactured at?
I believe it's in Denmark.
Okay. Now, my understanding would be, though, is that the data that you provided to this model would be the information that was provided to you at Aztec based upon what they told you the noise would be.
Correct. We use Aztec's
okay. Now,
data.
Where is the computer data that you fed into this model? Do you have copies of that?
They're on our servers.
Okay. I'd like to be provided, Mr. Chairman, with copies of that as well, because we all know that what you put into a computer is what you get out of the computer, and I want to have the ability to have my expert run those tests as to the data being put into that model that he's utilizing.
Is that permissible?
What?
Do we have to do that?
We'll ask the applicant to provide both parties with such data.
Because we're going to have our own noise.
Yes, whatever, as long as the applicant agrees to your requests, we'd of course like to receive a copy of the same. as long as the applicant's agreeable, the applicant can object if there's something they don't want to supply, and then that's in the record too. So take it from there.
So I take it he's going to provide it. Is that- Are you going to provide it?
We're going to need it for our noise expert.
Yeah.
So, fait accompli.
No, we have no, we will provide it.
Now,
Okay.
It's my understanding also that as a part of the data that you have to submit to put into this model, you must also have a topography map of the property in question so that you can determine what barriers or what topographical features there are that might in any way buffer the sound and or the like. Do you know if that was done?
We considered a flat topography, which is
Pardon me?
we considered a flat topography, which is the most conservative method of looking at it.
So you didn't have a topographical map that you punched into the computer.
No, if there was topography, it would only lower the sound levels as the topography would attenuate.
I have perhaps just a couple more questions. We'll just take a look at this report. That's okay, thank you.
That's Army Way. I know, it's kind of like
Well, in your report, you say on page 5, all available noise control options provided by the equipment manufacturer were considered in the evaluation. The acoustical model considered the propagation of sound over distance and the barrier effect of buildings and topography.
Yes, well, topography in the sense that a flat topography results in hemispherical spreading, as opposed to if this thing was a mile in the air, it would be spherical spreading.
Okay.
A flat topography is still topography.
Okay. Then you really say on page 6, by incorporating the manufacturer provided noise control options into the plant design, the resulting sound levels are expected. So this is a prediction of something that may happen. There's no definitive statement that it's going to happen, is there?
Well, the plant is not built yet.
Well, but there are
Everything
other
is a
plants
calculation.
There are other plants existing within a reasonable distance by commutation where you could have taken those measurements yourself, could you not have?
Not identical plants.
Pardon me?
Not identical plants.
Well, Aztec plants, correct?
Still not identical. Each
Were
plant
you
is
present
custom
when-
built.
Okay. Were you present, well, you say that there are no identical plants, but yet you're relying upon information provided to you about existing plants which you never even saw.
We're not taking total plant noise. We're taking individual pieces of equipment and piecing them together to create the plant that they are building here.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this question. When you take, I think you said there were 25 different pieces of equipment, correct?
Something like that.
And so what you're saying is that noise readings of some sort were taken with regard to those 25 individual pieces of equipment.
Yes.
Do you know how those readings were taken?
With a sound level meter.
Okay. And then someone selected the ones they wanted and came up with this amalgam of all those 25 sounds put together, correct?
We threw every piece of equipment that was provided to us, we put into our model.
But you didn't take into consideration noise coming from trucks.
We did, it's just not presented in the report.
All right. Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mike's got a question. Steve?
Can I add something?
Oh,
that
yeah,
I
sure.
skipped? Since we're going into the records so deep, the pieces of equipment that you're recommending with silencers and barriers, you're done, right?
I'm done.
Okay, well, you can sit down then.
I'm listening.
You can listen, sit down.
Sit down, listen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. You got a stack silencer, and you got the motors, and you're recommending 15 barriers and enclosures in your list.
15 pieces of equipment that need some type of additional noise control, whether
Right,
that be
I
a
just-
barrier or a jacket or a wrap or something.
So you got two main ones, your motors and your stack and 15 others. The question I really have, I just wanted to put that on the record, that this is not one item or two items, it's 15 plus the stack and the motors. what is the best vegetative barrier for knocking down the noise?
Usually some type of evergreen or something
Pine
that's going
trees.
to maintain its...
That's what we've done in the past.
but
And
generally it needs to be several
This-
dozens of feet. It can't be just one line of trees. It needs to be a certain amount of distance of trees for it to attenuate. If it's just a line of trees, there'll still be leaks going through.
Well, you stagger them.
Yeah.
You know, I've done the noise test behind them. It definitely works. I'm a believer in belt and suspenders. So you put all these barriers up and you got forklifts and trucks and everything else going around. But if you put a berm with pine trees around the plant where you can, that knocks the heck out of the noise. And I think you want to consider that with this application. We've done it many other places in the town, ball fields, even the original berms that went in on Row Hill were pine trees. The original berms in 1978 at the DPW were pine trees. And believe me, it knocks down the noise. So I just wanted to put that on the record because I'll be asking that we also put pine trees. That's your belt and suspenders. Do you disagree?
No, I agree.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? No? Seeing none? Okay, from the audience.
I thought you meant the one in the back.
Yes.
And everything. Her face isn't put up.
Maria Janusik, Camplain Road, Hillsborough property owner. Is this pertaining only to noise, to the issue of noise right now, or is it open to all questions?
No, he's the noise engineer, so it's to noise
Okay,
for
so
this witness.
this will still be open to the public for other questions then?
Well, to other witnesses, yeah. Wait, you have other witnesses, Counselor?
I have a traffic engineer.
Traffic engineer?
Yep.
That your last witness?
That'll be my last affirmative witness, so.
Okay. So we'll have a traffic engineer after this, and then any other general questions at the end.
So
whenever
general
the end
questions,
is.
general
Yeah.
questions can be asked later, because
Later, yeah.
according to the agenda, this is regarding a minor site plan approval and also regarding existing nonconformities and other things that are on the agenda.
Right. So, right now, though, we're going one witness at a time, so this is noise.
Okay, noise. So I can ask my questions later.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions for the noise engineer? Yes.
All right.
Bill Trethaway, 1274 Millstone River Road. I would imagine you have probably been involved with many acoustic studies or noise studies, sound studies, both
Yes.
as participant, as the primary engineer, and as the author of the reports, correct?
Yes.
And when you first testified before this board, you described your qualifications and they accepted you as an expert?
Yes.
And you've been accepted by many other boards in this state and in other areas as experts?
In this state, but only as an acoustical engineer.
Okay. My whole question has to do with your modeling and your uncertainty of your model, because I'll notice that your results is very, very close to the limit. And what is the uncertainty you have in the model? Was it as a percentage? Is it to some sort of statistical tolerance, or is there an absolute tolerance of plus or minus 2 dBA or something of that sort?
We're only ever as good as the data we receive, but generally it's a plus or minus 1 dB if they're using a type 1 sound level meter. Some of the things we do to help be conservative in our model is we don't consider air absorption. We consider a flat topography, which is the most conservative. So there's other factors that we build in to kind of have a factor of safety.
So you have taken the conservative approach as far as attenuation levels for distance, not accepting that there be any pollution or air or water absorption attenuation.
Correct.
And nothing due to terrain or bouncing or multipath.
Correct.
Okay. So, and you're within 1 dB, and you said your results were within 1 dB.
Yes, and again, the compliance testing will really show where we are, but with our conservative approach, we're showing to be under the code.
You said you've done many of these studies. You've done a lot of compliance testing?
Yes.
And have you generally found that your models are still conservative due to compliance testing, that they're below the limits, or do they come closer to the edge?
When they put in everything they're supposed to put in, they're pretty much right on target.
Did you believe everything was put in this model that's supposed to be put in?
Well, I mean, when they install the equipment in the field,
Okay,
if they
I'm
do it the way we recommend, then it's close. It's where it should be. When it's over is when they forget to put a silencer in or something like that.
And the one board member suggested additional attenuation, which
I think that's a good idea.
sounds like a good idea and a win for everybody. Thank you.
I got that boy. The MVP. We don't want any seats.
Well, he is the professional engineer.
We're not talking seats.
Anybody?
I'm not a professional
No,
engineer.
you're not?
No, I didn't ever have to get my PE. I just
Oh, you didn't have to pass the test? Oh, okay, you're right,
Yeah.
that test, okay, right, all right.
He's in the semi-pro.
Well, you're an engineer and you're a professional, do it that way. Anybody, any other questions? Okay, for this witness? No? Okay, so you can call your next witness.
I just have a question to follow up.
Oh, you have one?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it normal
Talk up, Al.
Again, speak close.
Is it normal in creating a noise study to be provided with records from an industrial manufacturer and use those?
Yeah, we use manufacturer's data for almost all of our models. That's the only way you can do it.
All right, thank you.
Real data.
Can we have a short break of 5 minutes? Can we have a short break of 5 minutes, Mr. Chairman?
Certainly, I'm sure our transcriber would like it. 5 minutes it is.
Thank you.
Yes, we're okay, we're back. Counselor?
right.
Call your next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have Gary Dean from Dolan and Dean. Mr. Dean, I think he needs to actually be sworn in. I was not here last time.
Raise your right hand. Do Gary Dean solemnly on this one you're about to give me the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, Mr. Dean, could you give the board the benefit of your background?
Certainly. I've been appearing before this board as well as the zoning board over the past 25 years for a variety of applicants. I believe my most recent appearance was for Green Village, the multi-component facility under construction on Route 206. But for the record, I'm a licensed professional engineer from Lehigh University, specializing in traffic engineering and municipal consulting for traffic-related matters.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Mr. Dean, you prepared a report in this matter?
Yes, I have.
Could you go over the report for the board?
Certainly. The report was prepared at the inquiry of the Environmental Commission. Not necessarily intended for use here, but it contains the relevant information. Essentially, from a traffic engineering perspective, this application is akin to a change in tenancy. A furniture store is moving out and a carpeting store is moving in instead. So in terms of traffic, in terms of what your zone plan and ordinance anticipates to be generated on this property, I would submit that the traffic characteristics and the volumes are effectively equal from the prior operation as a concrete manufacturing plant to the proposed operation as an asphalt production facility. To share a few numbers with you, we've reviewed the site environs. I've personally driven Valley Road and the intersecting roads that would serve as the principal routes to and from the site. As the board may be aware, there's a municipal ordinance that restricts truck traffic on Valley Road between Route 206 and Roycefield Road, and as a result, traffic that principally continues to the south towards Montgomery, Princeton, and points further south would travel via Valley Road to Farm Road and then either continue or simply use Triangle Road to access Route 206. The posted speed limit along Valley Road in the site vicinity is 35 miles per hour. The terrain is generally level. There are no obstructions to sight distance or visibility for approaching trucks or passenger vehicles. And the characteristics of the surrounding land uses are identical to the subject application. They are industrial in nature, including the Hercules container repair manufacturing facility directly across from the subject site. In terms of overall traffic activity, and that was an area of inquiry with the Environmental Commission, we reviewed the application with the applicant as to their projections, and they are slightly less in terms of overall volume, and by volume I mean tonnage, than was produced at the concrete plant. The concrete plant, from what I understand, produced annually an average of 80,000 cubic yards, which equates to about 150,000 tons in weight of the material. By contrast, the subject application would generate approximately 100,000 tons of material. So less material, less traffic. So not only is it a change in tendency, it's a tendency that yields less traffic than the site has historically seen. The next question is, well, how many trucks? You know, we understand gross yardage and tonnage, but what does that mean in terms of daily truck activity? There's obviously an import of material, aggregate, that comes in from nearby quarries, and then that material is processed, mixed with petroleum products, which are also brought into the site. The asphalt is produced, loaded, and then leaves the premises. The total truck activity on a daily basis would be approximately 50 trucks per day, both inbound receiving and outbound shipping. Over the course of an an average business day, that might average about 6 to 8 trucks per hour. And obviously, as a production facility, basically you can't speed up the assembly line. There is a finite limit as to how much production can be yielded, and based on the expectation of tonnage, I would expect, and based on other applicants I've represented that have proposed similar facilities, I would say this is consistent and would ensure a low traffic volume on the neighboring roads. Beyond that, I understand the applicant at the prior hearing has agreed to limit any use of Otten Road, excuse me, to the west for their truck routing. Although there are no restrictions under your municipal ordinances, that is something that has been offered as part of this application. And if there are any specific questions or comments regarding our findings, I'd be happy to address those.
Board members, any questions? Bill?
Mr. Dean, you just referred to 50 truck trips per day?
No, 50 trucks per day.
50 trucks?
Correct.
So it's 50 in, 50 out?
Correct.
So yeah, your report was talking 22 to 28 trucks per day?
For receiving, and then 22 to 28 on shipping.
With these 50 trucks, how much tonnage do you think you're going to process through?
That's what I said. The annual production is approximately 100,000 tons.
So, and typically with asphalt, what we've seen in our industry, basically, isn't there like a peak season for it? When
Correct.
it's a little warmer, say May, June, when DOT gives municipal aid grants and DOT starts cranking up and the Turnpike starts doing projects, and 287 does projects, that there's could be an intense moment. Things can kind of get compressed and be almost like a bell-shaped curve.
Without question, during the winter months, there's almost no site activity. When it freezes, there's a limitation on laying or providing asphalt, and most plants close down. It varies year to year, but typically we find December, right around the holiday season, or sometimes a few weeks earlier, generally through late February, and until the weather starts consistently getting above freezing, there's a real limitation. In fact, Mr. White could probably tell you most municipal inspectors won't even permit asphalt on road resurfacing projects. So with that, the tonnage and the materials are compressed into about a 9-month period. That is correct. So there are some months there'll be no traffic, or effectively none, from this plant. And that's in a little bit of a contrast with concrete, which can be produced year-round.
Could there be some months you have double the amount of trucks because of a DOT project, 287 project?
I don't have sufficient information to tell you that it would double or you know, be 50% more at any given time. I can only give you a sense of typical activity. But obviously during the summer months, obviously, schools are closed. It's a very good time to do resurfacing and paving projects. June, July, and August are pretty ideal times to see a little uptick in business, no question.
The only reason I asked is that you get 3 silos, each holding 150 tons each. And then you also have a plant that can produce almost 400 ton an hour. It just seems that the truck trips seem a little light, that's all, during the peak. I mean, that could be the average, but I would be more concerned with peak.
I understand your concern. I think in terms of what's been the historical use of the site, those patterns would be similar for a concrete plant. So again, it's nothing that this site hasn't seen previously in terms of traffic activity.
But do your averages, I'm sorry, just so I'm clear, did they assume a full year or only the 9-month peak work season?
It assumes that the material and projections on production would occur over 9 months.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Marcia, anything?
No.
Okay. No? Okay. Second shot for the board. Any questions? No? Okay, from the floor? Yeah. Okay. Done?
Good evening. I just really have several questions. Would it be fair to say that in preparing your report, you relied entirely upon the testimony of the gentleman who was here last week who identified himself as being the right-hand man of Mr. Pearson as concerns the use of the property and the production that would come out of it?
No.
What did you rely upon?
I relied, as I indicated, based on other studies I've conducted for asphalt facilities.
Okay, what other facilities did you refer to in preparing your report?
You've read my report, correct? They're
Yes,
listed.
yeah,
They're listed in the report.
Okay, so you went out and looked at those sites, or you just simply gathered information from them?
Both.
And when did you go out to perform those studies?
In my prior work experience.
But not with regard to this specific project?
No, that's internal data we've collected for other
Okay.
applicants.
Now, with regard to the production on a yearly basis, did you just simply accept the size of the other facilities, or did you weigh that into coming up with a formula for what this particular facility could produce?
Based on the projected production of this facility and comparing it with prior work effort, I found that the estimates of approximately 50 trucks per day were reasonable.
Okay. Now, would it be a fair comment to say that despite what the applicant says they will be producing, the actual equipment itself is capable of producing greater amounts of product, is it not?
Typically, that's the case, yes.
Okay. Now, with regard to the on-site queuing of trucks, did you perform any studies as to how long a truck would remain on site in a queue before they would be able to take on the material?
I did not, no.
Pardon me?
I did not.
Did you give any consideration to the internal configuration of the roadways and aisleways within the site?
Yes.
Do you refer to that in your report?
No.
I know that you've testified, and your report reflects the fact that you relied upon studies done at other sites. In those studies, did you give testimony before the boards?
Yes.
Did you give testimony as an applicant's expert or as an objector's expert?
As an applicant.
Okay. Now, with regard to this particular site, is it your testimony that subsequent to the time that you were retained to give testimony in this matter, and up until this evening, other than relying upon those old reports, you performed no other studies to reflect empirical data as far as the production amounts of these various locations?
No, I've represented the other side of the supply chain, that is the producers of the aggregate, and in terms of annual licensing and production amounts to also ascertain the validity of the tonnage versus traffic.
Okay. Do you have copies of those reports that you relied upon? They're in your archives?
Not for this file, no.
Well, you relied upon reports, you said, from other cases you worked on.
Correct.
So that means that the data you're testifying to would have been based upon other reports which you have in your archives.
Correct.
And you relied upon them in preparing this report.
Correct.
How many such studies were there?
3.
Okay, I'd like to get copies of those reports as well, Mr. Bernstein.
Not available to release those to you. Those are work product for a particular client. They're not a matter of public record.
You can redact them.
I'm not at liberty to produce those without client consent.
Okay. So you're saying you're not going to produce it?
Correct.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Yes?
Susan Gulliford, Hunt Club Road. I have a question about the trucks. What's the weight of the trucks that's going to be coming out? I'm thinking of damage to the roads. Is this going to be, you referred to it as similar to previous tenant. Would the effect on the surrounding roads also be similar?
Yes.
So 100 trips a day, similar to the concrete plant?
Correct.
Similar damage to the roads?
Well, damage is relative. This is in an industrial zone where this type of use is permitted and expected. And for that reason, I have to accept the premise that the municipality, in so designating these areas for heavy industrial use, evaluated the suitability of the roadway system to accommodate the traffic.
Well, you make asphalt. I suppose you can always repair it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for the traffic expert? Yes.
Maria Janusik. Is there any estimate as to how many trucks will be moving at night from this facility?
I'm not aware of that, of any of those projections.
So there's no studies based on existing businesses that operate at night? Asphalt business?
No.
No. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for the traffic expert? Okay, seeing none. Counselor?
Can I just to follow up on that, I just want to make sure we're clear. The estimates that you provided for 50 trucks were, and the 6 to 8 per hour, were typically normal work hours.
Correct.
Okay.
I would note for the record that prior witnesses have testified that it would only rarely operate at night, and it's anticipated to operate during the day.
I would have to assume that if with all that we've discussed regarding, and we still have to get our experts on the acoustical, if everything was to work out, trees included, if you agree to the trees, and we haven't heard from your owner yet, then no matter when it is, the sound's going to be buffered.
Well, I mean, if they're talking about on Valley Road or once you turn onto Farm Road, those are public roads. You can't do anything about sound.
No, exactly. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
But the operating of this facility at night, or the trucks being on the property at night, if you're mollifying sound daytime, it's the same sound being mollified at night. So it doesn't matter what time of the day you're operating. If you're
That's correct. The barriers would exist during the day and the night for their purposes of reducing sound.
But we will have to get your client to agree to the pine trees. That would be the belt and suspenders.
We'd like to just have a chance to see the report from the board's noise expert before agreeing
That
to.
that has nothing to do with the pine trees. Okay, the report from the expert has nothing to do with the pine trees. Pine trees is to knock down the noise, right at the edge. It's a proven. Your acoustical engineer even said it. It's a proven methodology.
I mean, if you're asking, All right, they'll commit to putting pine trees
It's a
along
very
their
simple
property
thing.
frontage
We've done
on
it all
Valley
over
Road.
town. And it works.
Thank you.
He's doing a good job trying to protect it.
Yeah, put a couple trees.
Okay.
Okay, Counselor?
Yeah, we understand that, I guess we'll have to be back after we receive a noise report from the board's independent noise or acoustic engineer. And we reserve the right to, call back any witnesses as necessary to address any issues that arise between that time.
Well, yes, bring them, because I suppose the public will want to ask at the end questions of whomever, so.
I would also assume, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Gazarovski, I'd ask to confirm I assume he has witnesses as well.
Does he? Okay, so you'll have witnesses to call then when we come back? Okay. So when we come back, we'll get the sound report, the noise report from our consultant to advise the board. Mr. Gazarovski will have whatever witnesses he's calling, and then the public will have questions for, well, whatever questions are left over.
Ron, do you have any indication who those witnesses will be?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, use the microphone for that, yeah.
Okay, if I sit down?
Join me here.
I couldn't resist that, but.
I know you couldn't. You have to get a dig in. I got to get a dig in.
It's in my blood, so.
Keeps us on our toes.
Okay.
It's professional, too.
For the record, I do intend to call at least 2 witnesses. I'm not sure in what order I'll call them. It'll be dependent upon what your traffic consultant says. I'm going to call.
You mean our noise consultant?
Your noise consultant,
Right,
I'm
right.
sorry. I'm going to call Mr. Alex Litwarnia, who in fact is a noise consultant as well as a traffic consultant. And secondly, I intend to call Thomas, who is a licensed professional planner, the state of New Jersey. I may in fact also call an engineer, but I haven't made that determination yet.
You say Thomas?
Thomas.
The reason I asked the question, Mr. Chairman, is obviously for Mr. Fisher's edification relative to who he should bring back, as well as the anticipation that the board will have relative to additional witnesses. From a procedural point of view, Mr. Fisher, we're going to need extinction.
Okay. We'll agree.
The suggestion at this time is through October 31st.
Halloween. Well, end of the month. So do we,
Is that acceptable?
that's for them to grant, right?
That is acceptable.
Motion to accept the extension on the time for decision to October 31st.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
The next issue is time.
No, it doesn't matter. Sometime in October, it would have to be resolved by. We just picked the date at the end of the month. It doesn't have to be resolved on October 31st, just by
October 31st.
Right.
The next meeting of the board is September the 3rd, which right now has nothing on it. However, that's contingent upon the noise report being done and submitted prior to that.
Okay.
The alternative is we have one application on for September the 10th, which is Chrismic Association.
Okay, and we're expecting that to be long or short, or we don't know.
That's dependent upon the DOT work too, so it may not even happen then.
So, board's pleasure?
Well, we could,
September 10th?
September 10th, yeah. Since we probably Christmas won't happen. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Very good. And we should certainly have our noise report by then.
I would also indicate, Mr. Gazarovski, that if you have witnesses who intend to rely on reports, that we would ask that the board be provided with those reports by the last Friday in August.
I will do that, and I would have one request as well. For example, I'm not being copied by the report from Ms. Schiffman or other reports by your professionals. I would only request that when in fact a report is sent to the board, that I am copied with a copy of that report as well.
We'll advise Ms. Paglia to make sure you get your copies.
Okay, thank you.
If September 10th is acceptable, then we're going to need a motion to continue the meeting to this hearing till September the 10th without further notice.
I'll move that.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you,
Any
Mr.
opposed?
Chairman.
No? Okay, so be it. September 10th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you need another break, or?
Just like a minute.
All right, just a couple minutes while we switch
Years.
here.
I'm not recusing myself. 'cause I had-
No, you don't have to because you know the lawyer. Okay, we're on. Very good. Go ahead.
I may not help the lawyer.
What do you mean may?
All right, Counselor, go ahead. Yeah, get the microphone close.
Chairman, members of the board, my name is Dominic Sermonaro, and I represent the applicant Richmond Properties. This is essentially a 5-lot subdivision encompassing Block 182, Lots 2 and 2.01. It would result in 5 new lots. One of those lots would have an existing structure on it, house and an existing garage. The other 4 lots would be new lots, which would comprise new construction. They would be the necessity, there is existing now on the lot that has the structure on it, a pre-existing front yard variance. It would need one new variance, and that would be a side yard variance to the out structure or the garage structure. And that would be as a result of the reshaping of that front lot as a result of this subdivision. I would now like to call, if I may, Mr. Anatol Sabanchuk, who is a principal of Richmond Properties. Be sworn.
My name is Anatol, Anatol, last name Siemiencuk. CZUK.
Would it, I'm sorry.
Raise your right hand for me, please. Do you, Anatol Semenchik, someone swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
With the chairman's and the board's permission, may I refer to Mr. Semenchik as Anatol for the sake of ease? Thank you.
Please do.
All right, thank you. Anatol, would you tell the board what you have planned for these 5 lots?
Just like to briefly tell a little bit about our company. We've been in business for over 15 years, constructing custom homes and some condominium projects. We're operating locally. We're a local builder in Somerset, Union, and Middlesex counties. We don't have a defined model yet for those lots, but we have in mind like colonial homes ranging between 3,000 and 3,400 square feet of living area with 2 garages, with side entrance to the garages. Basically, that's what we're looking to construct there.
And as to the remaining lot, which has the present structures on it, what would be the plans for that lot?
I would like to, we already started preserve this house, pull some permits and doing renovation of the house. The same thing is if board permit us to preserve the garage, we would restore the garage and rehab it.
You did appear before the environmental committee, did you not?
Yes, we did.
And it was their preference to maintain and keep the house and the resulting garage also?
Yes, this was my understanding.
I have nothing further for Mr. Spacek.
Okay. Marcia?
No,
Okay. All right. Board members, any questions for the applicant? No?
This is the zoning for that area, correct? I'm just want clarification.
RA zone.
Yes, yes. And it's my intention to call Mr. Ford, obviously,
Okay.
as the zoning and plan and engineering.
Mm.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
I'd call Mr. Ford.
Oh, yes. Well, Just a minute, yeah.
Well, all right.
Motion to open the public?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any questions for the public for the actual applicant? Oh, okay. No, go ahead, sir. Yeah. Yeah.
My name is Bruce Yeager, 250 Sunnymead Road. Question, will any of you guys be living from Richmond Properties in any of those houses?
Very possible in old house.
Okay, okay. I have numerous questions, so just continue, or?
Well, I mean, this is just for the owner.
Okay.
Of the, not, you know, if you had questions about, like, I don't know, the design or the engineering or something,
No,
that would
just
be for.
questions in regarding the zoning of the area, lot sizes that are for residential, single-family dwellings, those type of questions that I don't have knowledge of that I wanted to ask.
Yeah, that'll be for Mr. Ford when he comes up.
Okay.
All right.
The second question, as far as the septic's failed, from my understanding, correct?
Which septic you're talking about? We did
For the dwellings you're proposing to build there on Sunnymead Road?
No, we
Okay.
did some tests, but I would prefer to have a sewer over septics.
Okay.
And most, I would say, environmental friendly
Okay.
than have a few septics there.
Okay. And your intentions are to run that down Sunnymead Road?
No.
Okay. And why is that?
Well, we design, Mr. Ford design, and we submit to
Okay.
MUA, and this
Okay.
design, I guess, was approved.
So cost.
Pretty much.
So cost. Just my concern with that is I'm a resident there. I would not have bought there if there was 5 houses across the street. So I understand you're going to be able to build there. I understand that. But, if you're going to put sewer in, that's one of the concerns I have. I would like that option that there's sewer, available at the street. But no problem. Like I said, thank you.
Okay. Call Mr. Ford.
Yeah, any other questions? No, are there any other questions for the actual owner? Yes.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Ron Ashley's 260 Sunnymead Road. As is my understanding, there were 2 perk tests done, and both of them failed.
Is that, I think that's probably what I don't know if that was the same thing that the other person was asking. Now.
Very high water table.
Okay, that's probably from Mr. Ford, I would think, that question.
Mr. Ford can address that question.
Yeah, that's for Mr. Ford, it's for the engineer, that question. Okay?
Okay,
Yeah.
then maybe I'll wait till Mr.
This is more about what's the use gonna
Is it
be.
gonna,
Yeah.
so there's no hardship variance, because it seems an awful lot to squeeze 4 houses into that property.
I'll take care of that. They all conform.
No, it doesn't, it meets the code.
It meets the code. I believe that the variances have to do with setbacks, not with lot size.
Yeah, because it's very close to the road at 65 feet. Also concerned about the air traffic going over there, if it is in the flight pattern or not.
Mr. Ford can address that.
Yeah, that's also for Mr.
Okay.
Ford. He's basically just here to talk about the use.
The use.
Mhm.
So it's just going to be no houses, because it's a lot of impervious soil going to be covered over
Well,
there.
again, that's a
Okay.
technical question
I'll
for
wait
the
Mr.
engineer.
Ford.
Right,
Thank you.
right.
My apologies to the chairman and the board, simply for him to tell the board what type of house was going to be built there. I apologize.
No, I understand. Any other questions that are at use? Yes, Marcia?
I do have one question.
Yeah.
You're keeping the existing house, and I was out there and I saw it was being renovated. It's quite a handsome brick house. You're also proposing to keep what you're calling on the plan of the garden shed, which is not in great shape.
Correct.
And it's also requiring a variance for setback, given where the proposed subdivision line is. So maybe you could talk about why you're keeping it, what you plan to do with the garage or shed.
Well, probably we'll convert this shed to a 2-car garage, and we will renovate it, so it's gonna have a new roof, new kind of exterior look. So it's gonna look very close as a detached two-car garage with a shop on the side. And I think the plan's proposing some screening from the side as well between the other lot.
So if you're going to remove the shed, why not build the
No.
garage in a
No,
location that's conforming?
No, we're not planning to remove the shed. We're just planning to renovate and restore the shed and
Okay.
turn into two-car garage.
I see, okay. I see.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the owner? Okay, seeing none. Counselor?
Call Mr. Ford.
Okay.
This is, no.
Your full name?
Michael Ford.
Do you, Michael Ford, solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Chairman, Mr. Ford has appeared before this board, I understand, on several occasions and given his qualifications. In light of that, I would ask that the board could accept his credentials as both planner and engineer.
Yes.
Thank you.
You may proceed.
Okay. Mr. Ford, would you address both the planner's report and the engineer's report?
Before you do that, Chairman, I think the basis of design is not justified in this
So you
application.
would like to make that statement up front?
Yes.
Okay.
You have two lots, three significant figures, 2.002, 2.007. When I see that in these situations, I look at the critical areas. Your critical areas are not accounted for in the drawings or the EIS. Your EIS does not. It only gives the steep slopes. You have Royce Brook going through there. You have seasonal high water table. You have stream corridor. All those are not accounted for, and I don't see how you can get 5 lots out of this without the critical areas. And you don't comply with the ordinances that say it has to say what the critical areas are. The critical areas in your EIS say just a steep slope, and it doesn't talk about the other criticals. It talks about the sewer and other things. And then when it goes into the seasonal high water table, it says that you have the seasonal high water table soils. But again, it doesn't cover it, and it says additional verification is needed on the Roland Silt loan. So I really think you have an incomplete application here right now with your basis of design. So to talk about the design for 5 lots and the shed next to it, that you probably end up with 4 lots when he finally does the critical areas. And you know what the critical areas are. According to our ordinance, the critical areas is any area that is environmentally sensitive or which, if limited to slopes of 12% greater, floodplains, not covered, floodways, not covered, areas of critical seasonal high water table, not covered, wetlands, not covered, and wetland transition areas and stream corridors. So you're going to have to justify your critical areas immediately before you start giving details on 5 lots. What I call this is oblivion. It's trying to put 10 pounds of manure in a 5-pound bag. And your EIS doesn't go into the demographics. And the reason why I do this is because the demographics say every house you build is a negative rateable in this township. And we've known that since the 60s. So when you try to squeeze one more house at 3 significant figures for 2 different lots, we end up with negative because you have over 2 children in each house, and the 2 children average, what is the school board now? $13,000 a student? They're going to be paying $26,000 in taxes? No. So because of that, I really don't want to see the blibbit. So if you can justify and go through it, because your drawings and the EIS do not justify the critical areas. And I told you this a month ago. And when you testify, your professional engineering license can disappear.
Mr. Chairman, may Mr. Ford reply?
Well, yes, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wouldn't go right to the critical areas?
Oh, absolutely, because you're going to be talking about 5 lots.
The property has a wetland LOI, so the wetlands have been delineated. I thought you said that the wetlands haven't been accounted for.
The wetlands are not accounted for in your calculations on your drawings.
Okay.
You only show steep slopes, 3.9. It's your 3.9745. And we're getting this in very minute.
Sorry, maybe that's why you can't see it.
I can
well,
see
yeah.
it.
Okay.
I got a magnifying glass.
Okay. The total areas on the property, the critical area calculations have been done, and the final plat that you're referring to, the first line says the total critical areas, but then it goes on to list that includes the steep slopes, the floodplains, the seasonal high groundwater table, wetland transition areas and buffers, and stream
Yes,
quarters.
that does, but your EIS only says it's steep slopes of 12%, 3.9745.
Okay. Oh, now I understand the
And
confusion.
so your whole EIS is either all wrong, or both of them are wrong, because everything is in steep slopes here.
You're referring to the EIS by Vincent Agavino Associates?
Yes.
Okay. It's not by Van Cleef Engineering. Maybe what you're reading is he summarized and.
I don't
Okay.
I don't have, you do not comply with the ordinance if you don't give the details. You can't cluster them all together and say 3.975. Read your ordinances.
Okay. Can I?
Keep it.
I haven't really started. What we did, Michael, is the density calculation gives you half credit for certain critical areas.
Yes.
And 0 credit for other critical areas.
Yes.
So when doing the density calculation.
Where is the density calculation?
On the
You don't have the details in this. It doesn't exist. How am I supposed to review this if you don't put it in either the EIS or your drawings? You just clustered everything together and said five lots, 2.007, 2.002.
Mr. Chairman, sir, just if you could help me have a chance to answer.
He's
and
trying
then-
to justify something that isn't written here. Go on, answer. It can't be justified.
The EIS may state something that is not accurate. The plans show the wetlands as per the DEP approval, the floodplain per the documented FEMA maps, the steep slopes calculated per the topographic mapping for the property, and
Can you show me on what page that calculation is with those broken out?
the reason, and
The answer is no, isn't it? Come on, don't go in
well, they're not
circles.
broken out because.
Because
they're-
why? How are we supposed to review it?
Please, let me, please.
Okay,
Michael.
go. But
Okay.
I can't.
Because in the calculation, if the wetlands are the biggest area, and they include in the wetland area some areas that are also floodplain, that are also steep slopes, you don't deduct them twice. You deduct them for the most restrictive area. Please. And
how do I know that?
And the total critical area that is only accounted for half credit, which is the floodplain, all those items I just listed, have been identified.
No,
If you now
no,
we
they
can.
haven't. There's no detail on them at all. They're in drawings, but there is no calculation showing the number of acres that are in there and the percents. And the percents change. The floodway is 100%, whereas the wetlands is 50%.
Correct.
Stream
Right.
corridors 50. You know, this is
Per
the
section
ordinance
188-46 of the code.
Yeah.
Perhaps, I have them broken down. You said we talked about this at the last meeting. We didn't really start at the last meeting.
I know, no,
Okay.
I
didn't
mentioned
get
it to you that there is no mention of the critical areas in the calculations.
Can I give the total number and break it down for you right now?
Yeah, but how am I supposed to review that and make sure you don't end up with 2.002 and 2.007? That you
Because the most restrictive line is shown on the plan, which is the wetland and stream corridors. Within the wetland area, there is a floodplain of 3 acres. But obviously, the critical area calculation that is shown on the plan calls out the critical areas to be deducted at 3.97 acres.
But your EIS contradicts that.
I'm not disputing that. I'm not. It's an error.
Take it from my point of view. I'm sitting here without any of the calculations, and I have something that says, documented, it's 3.9745 acres of steep slopes. It gives nothing for the seasonal high water table, the floodplain, and everything else. So
the plans do.
If you make a presentation tonight, we have no chance to go and see what the true numbers are.
Chairman, may I have just a minute with Mr. Ford and with the applicant?
Or to,
Let's discuss it.
right, yeah,
Thank
yes,
you.
of course.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to talk to Mr. White.
Understanding the...
Hold on 1 second.
Sure.
You good? Okay. Yes, Kaz? Yeah, okay, go ahead, proceed, Counselor.
Mr. Chairman, understanding that it's always my position to give the board everything that they want to know so that they can make an informed decision, I would ask that we be given an adjournment, and we ask Mr. Ford to prepare anything that is required and submit it, so we will have a full hearing the next time with the board having all the information they want.
Sir, what you're not doing is you're providing information, correct, but this is compliance with all the ordinances, which you're not in compliance with. So it's not really just providing additional information, it's providing the information that was needed for the basis of design for this.
No, and I believe there was some misunderstanding, maybe even on my part, because I thought that was dealt with the environmental committee. So
Normally they do, and I
yes,
started
they
on the
did.
environmental committee in 1977. But unfortunately, they didn't catch this one.
Well, they dealt with it. They may not have caught it. That's why we came with the expectation that it was proper and complete.
We'll leave it at that. It's not even close.
All right.
Now, when you do go back, you got to change the EIS to reflect.
We discussed it, and we'll have the EIS
Yeah.
corrected as well. Yes.
Because he even notes that the
We'll have
season-
Mr. Agavino do that.
Yeah, detailed, just as it says in the ordinance, detail each one of the calculations. And the other thing that's required is, he said, the seasonal high water table soil, the rolling soil, needs to be verified, which that's what he's supposed to do as this. So the verification of the seasonal high water table has to be justified too in the critical areas. I don't usually see EISs that say needs to be verified.
We'll discuss all that with Mr. Agavino.
Good, because
Fine.
that'll determine the design basis, and you understand.
We'll
where I'm
verify
coming
all
from.
those numbers and break it down for you.
Yep. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman? A couple of things. The time of decision for this application is actually August 19th. This board is not scheduled to meet until after that. We would ask the applicant to extend the time of decision till the end of September.
Absolutely no objection.
September 3rd is open. The question is, will you have all the material?
Yes.
Summer, it's not, that's still summer, it's not
No, it's
Labor
after
Day
Labor.
yet.
It's the first Thursday.
The first
I know.
Thursday
Yeah,
of
I
the
know.
month.
It's a scheduled
Let's have
meeting.
our summer.
So September 3rd's open, yes.
Yeah.
And you said you'd, huh? I'll be ready. Yeah, and you said you'll be ready by then. Okay, so do we need
Applicant
to?
available?
Yes. we are.
Motion to continue this application until September the 3rd without renotice.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
There a motion?
Environmental motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, see you September 3rd. Do we have to, Eric, you wanted to tell us about July 23rd.
Mr. Chairman, we are asking for the business meeting. I know everybody wants to start their summer a little early and keep it a little longer, but there is going to be a need for a short business meeting on July the 23rd to deal with an ordinance I believe will be coming from the Township Committee and the possibility of an application approval that night as well. So we are going to need that meeting.
You mean a resolution?
Resolution
approval.
approval.
Right, so, okay. Is that business meeting currently on the schedule, so we don't have
Yes,
to?
it is. It wouldn't
See you
have.
next month.
Okay,
Yes.
so therefore, we don't have to take any action, just everybody be aware that we do have some business to conduct on July 23rd.
And we need a quorum, folks.
And we need 5 people.
I'm not
Okay.
going to be here. I won't be here.
Well, we're going to have to, we're going to have to find the remaining members.
We're gonna have to find 5 members for this, okay?
Thank
Why don't we do
you.
a count now? Who can be here, who can't?
Well, let's see, how many we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 of the 11 right now. And how many are available? Raise your hand on July 23rd.
He said it's an ordinance.
Available.
You have to talk about.
So, 4? We have 4 available here, so we would need 1 from the other 3 who are not here right now.
The alternatives, I believe, Mr. Chairman, the bylaws permit you to call a special meeting, or we can, in the alternative, we don't have a quorum, call it for June the 30th, which is actually the last Thursday of the month.
July 30th.
July 30th, pardon me.
Right. Okay. Well, let's first see. We can do this in the interim.
Well,
right?
to solve the problem, can I ask if the board would simply adopt a motion continuing the July 23rd meeting and to authorize the chairman in the absence to call for a July 30th business meeting?
Instead.
If there is, if we don't have a
necessary,
quorum.
In order to obtain a quorum. Okay, so motion to allow me to call the business meeting for July 30th instead of July 23rd, if that's what it takes to get a quorum.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I can make it the 30th.
Yeah, well, this way we have the option,
Yeah.
whichever date we can
Whatever
get
works.
5,
I hear
you
you.
know, based on vacations.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, that's it. Motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved. Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.